Hello and welcome back. Today's comparison is between Edward Cullen and ancient Greece and the lore of vampires. I know I've done videos with Edward before, but the ideals of modern day vampire and the lore of ancient societies are vastly different, and exploring that kind of thing has been quite interesting to me. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is from Restless Said to Romantic Immortal. Let's get into it. Oh, but before that, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that noti bell. Okay, now let's get into it. The modern vampire differs dramatically from its ancient predecessors. While contemporary popular culture presents the vampire as seductive, conflicted, and capable of moral choice, earlier traditions depict blood drinking beings as grotesque and malevolent. A comparison between Edward Cullen from Twilight by Stephanie Meyer and the vampire like figures in ancient Greek lore, particularly the Lamia, the Ampusa, and the Mormo, reveals a profound evolution in how cultures understand monstrosity, morality, and desire. Where ancient Greek vampire figures embody punishment, hunger, and divine wrath, Edward Cullen represents restraint, ethical self awareness, and romantic idealization. This shift reflects changing ideas about the nature of evil, the body, and human identity. Ancient Greek vampire like beings were not undead in the modern Gothic sense, but monstrous entities associated with divine punishment and restless spirits. Limia, for example, was once a mortal woman loved by Zeus. In many versions of the myth, she was driven mad or transformed into a child devouring monster by Hera's jealousy. Impusa, sometimes described as a shape shifting spirit, was associated with Hecate and known for seducing and consuming young men. Mormo appears in certain accounts as a night demon used to frighten children. These beings were supernatural or divinely transformed. They were often female, associated with devouring children or seducing youths, punitive or chaotic in origin. They functioned within a mythological system in which gods actively intervened within human life, and transformation often resulted from divine anger. Edward Cullen, by contrast, originates within a quasi scientific fictional framework. He was born with human and transformed into a vampire by another vampire in act of compassion. His condition is described less as a curse from the gods and more as a biological alteration. Unlike Greek mythic figures, he retains memory, personality, and moral continuity with his human life. The difference is significant. Greek vampire figures are mythic archetypes shaped by divine forces, while Edward is a individualized character shaped by personal history and ethical choice. At the core of both ancient Greek lore and modern vampire fiction lies hunger. Yet the meaning of hunger differs profoundly. Lamia and related figures are defined by insatiable appetite. Their consumption of children or young men is not framed as tragic moral struggle, but as an inherent monstrosity. Hunger symbolizes chaos and the breakdown of maternal or sexual order. Lamia's devouring of children, in particular, reflects ancient fears of infant mortality and the fragility of family structures. Edward Cullen also experiences intense hunger for human blood. However, the narrative centers on his refusal to get into it. He and his family choose to feed only on animals, adopting a vegetarian code. Hunger becomes a site of ethical conflict rather than inevitable violence. Thus, in Greek lore, hunger defines the monster. In Twilight, hunger tests the monster's morality. Ancient Greek vampire like figures are predominantly female and often linked to anxieties about female sexuality and maternal danger. Lamia's transformation into a child eating demon may reflect cultural unease about women who transgress social norms. And Pusa's seductive predation suggests fear of female sexual agency and deception. Edward Cullen reverses this pattern. He is a male vampire whose sexuality is carefully restrained. Rather than representing predatory seduction, he embodies disciplined desire. His attraction to Bella Swan is intense but controlled. He fears harming her and prioritizes her safety over his appetite. This shift signals a broader cultural transformation. In ancient Greek myth, the dangerous figure is often the devouring female, reflecting patriarchal anxieties about women's bodies and autonomy. In modern young adult fiction, the vampire becomes a romantic male whose power is rendered safe through emotional vulnerability and restraint. Greek vampire like beings are frequently grotesque or monstrous in description. Even when capable of shapeshifting or seduction, their true forms are horrifying. Monstrosity is externalized and visible. Edward Cullen, by contrast, is extraordinarily beautiful. His physical perfection is emphasized repeatedly. His immortality preserves youth and attractiveness, transforming the vampire from a decaying corpse into an aesthetic ideal. This shift reflects changing cultural relationships to the body. In ancient Greece, monstrous transformation often signified divine punishment or moral disorder. In contemporary culture, immortality and physical perfection align with the ideals of eternal youth and desirability. The vampire moves from repulsive aberration to aspirational fantasy. Perhaps the most significant contrast lies in moral structure. Ancient Greek vampire like figures do not struggle with conscience. They are instruments of divine will or embodiments of destructive appetite. Their narratives reinforce moral boundaries, transgression invites punishment, chaos threatens order. Edward Cullen, however, exists within a moral universe centered on personal choice. He experiences guilt, self doubt, and ethical deliberation. His identity is not fixed by his transformation. Instead, he defines himself through restraint and compassion. This reflects a broader cultural shift from mythological determinism to psychological individualism. In Greek myth, one's fate is shaped by gods and curses. In Twilight, identity is shaped by personal decisions. Ancient Greek vampire like beings function as cautionary and explanatory myths. They help communities process fears about childbirth, sexuality, and divine punishment. Their stories were embedded in oral traditions and religious belief. Edward Cullen functions within a globalized entertainment culture. His story reflects contemporary concerns about intimacy, consent, self control, and ethics of power. Rather than explaining natural phenomena, he dramatizes emotional and relational tension. The vampire thus evolves from a mythic symbol of divine retribution to a romantic symbol of disciplined desire. The comparison between Edward Cullen and ancient Greek vampire lore highlights the transformation of the vampire across millennia. Figures such as Lamia and Impusa embody insatiable hunger, divine punishment, and fear of disorder, particularly surrounding gender and reproduction. Edward Cullen embodies restraint, emotional depth, and ethical self-definition. While both ancient and modern vampires center on blood and immortality, their meanings differ radically. The Greek vampire figure represents uncontrollable chaos within a divinely ordered cosmos. Edward Cullen represents controlled power within a psychological, complex, secular world. In tracing this evolution, one sees not only the changing face of the vampire, but also shifting cultural understandings of monstrosity, morality, and what it means to be human. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and also make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that noti bell, and stay tuned for more videos from us. And as always, stay safe, courteous, and polite out there. And remember, stay anomalous.